welcome to my Flagstaff home. Today I'm going to talk about how I make sun-dried tomatoes. They're not really sun-dried, they're oven-dried. But when I garden in the summer, I always try to grow more than what we can consume in the summer. And that is because I like to be able to preserve things for the winter time so we can have some really nice tasting vegetables and things like that during the winter months. And so I try to freeze things like peas and beans, and I refrigerate some things. Like I take my tomatoes, I'll have to do a video on this, but I kind of do this thing with different, basil, garlic, and tomatoes and olive oil, make a few jars of those things to put in the refrigerator. I do canning of sauces and salsas and things like that, but I also love to make sun-dried tomatoes. I love sun-dried tomatoes. And they're actually quite expensive if you've ever looked at them in a store. To buy a jar of them, they're pretty expensive. But I grow tomatoes that are good for that. You can use Roma tomatoes, so if you want to try to do this and you want to pick up some from the grocery store, you can use Roma tomatoes. But I grow San Marzanos, which are not a good salad or not a good tomato to have on a salad because they're kind of pulpy. And so you really wouldn't want to have them on a salad, but they're really good because they're very good for making sauces, and they're really good for making sun-dried tomatoes. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how I make my sun-dried tomatoes in the oven, and then I'll show you also in this clip how I store my sun-dried tomatoes. So I'm starting with some ripe San Marzano tomatoes. I'm going to start by cutting off the stem end of each one, cutting them in half, and then I'm going to remove the seeds. So here are the tomatoes halved and the seeds and juice removed. Then I gave the tomatoes a really healthy dose of sea salt. That helps to draw liquid out of the tomatoes so it dries out better. I sprinkled a little thyme on top. You don't have to do that if you don't want to. And then I drizzled it with olive oil. Right now I'm preheating the oven to 450, so the next step is to put these in the oven at 450 for 15 minutes, and then at the end of 15 minutes you turn the oven completely off, don't open it, and leave the tomatoes in there for about an hour and a half or until the oven really cools down. So I've done it for 2 hours before, and they're really cooled down by that point. So about an hour and a half, and then they're pretty much finished at that point. So here we are with the tomatoes after they've been in the oven for about an hour and a half. They're ready now to cool off and go into a freezer bag, and then I keep those in the freezer for several months. Now you can see here that I have frozen these slices of tomato that I just dried out. Well, dried. They're not completely dried. They don't get crispy. They're just, they're kind of like sun-dried tomatoes, except for that they're dried in the oven. So it really is as simple as that. And because my tomatoes don't obviously all ripen up at the same time, I make batches. Starting in August, I start making batches. Okay, my dogs are making noise, sorry. I start making batches as we go. In fact, I probably have about 15 San Marzanos right now that are ready to prepare since I did what you saw a few days ago. So anyway, these are really wonderful. When I freeze them, I freeze them in a single layer. So then after they're frozen, then I dump them into the Ziploc bag, and they end up not all sticking together in a big clump. They're just so great to put on a pizza or to put in some kind of a casserole that calls for tomatoes. There's so many different uses for them, and I grew extra San Marzanos this year, so I would be sure to have a really big stuffed gallon-sized bag of these things to get me through the winter. Last year I just made a small amount and we were done with them, early in the winter. And so hopefully These will last into the spring. Hopefully this was helpful for you, and I hope you will join me on more videos on my Flagstaff home. If you're not subscribed to my channel, hit that button, and then YouTube will let you know when I upload new videos. I'll have some other videos coming up about things I'm doing for food storage, the things from my garden, and I hope you will join me. We'll see you again. Bye-bye.